You're unmuted, Lee, if you have a message for the people.
Oh.
Okay. I don't need to join audio. Does it turn that on? Or do I need to-
No, we just, the room audio wasn't on, so anything you were saying, the people on Zoom were not hearing.
Yeah, we got 6 folks on Zoom. Don't know.
We don't know this, okay.
Kind of getting ourselves together.
And am I on now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Everybody, I think was.
Well, hi there. I'm Zoomland. We are pulling together the forum. It's an unusual event for us. But we'll be ready to roll here in just a couple of minutes.
Well, Joe, I mean, I said those, I never heard about it last year. I looked at it again and again, walls, there was no line.
Maybe not.
It's just, it's moves.
Yours are on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't need 4.
No, 3 is 3.
It's 5.
Okay.
So.
Well, with you joining us, we'll now convene the December 11th, 2025 Planning Commission meetings. Ready to roll. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I think we have. Are we recording? Handy almost dozen here and next we're in rooms. We're ready to good.
Loud.
It's our cue. Okay. I don't need to reintroduce to it.
No.
Okay, good. All right, first item on the agenda, approval of minutes and planning commission and staff comments. The 3 of us are gonna have to do all the heavy lifting today. Any changes or notes to the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes of the November 11th meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Moved and seconded in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay. Staff, what you got for us?
Oh, it's been eventful.
Yeah.
We were here until past 7:30 last night,
Hmm,
for the Society Turn final plan and PUD. It was approved after a significant amount of public, comment. Basically acquainted and reacquainted a lot of people with what the project was about and everything that went into it. And by my count, that was meeting number 17. So that one will move forward with finalizing all the documents, getting it recorded, and you can expect to see infrastructure construction start this spring. Next week, we're going to so mining was continued to January 21st. We will have an executive session with the BOCC next Wednesday. But continued consideration of the mining regulations will be January 21st. And then we've got a couple of land use code amendments, both of which you'll hear about in the meeting today, so I'm not going to delve into those. And then for the airport, we did our triennial inspection of the quarry. And because there have been a lot of issues and concerns raised from some of the neighbors, we're actually just going to refer it to the BOCC and let them take on the finding of whether or not they're consistent with their resolution. So that'll be next week on the 17th. Also, I had been asked to write a couple of written interpretations relative to the airport procedures and potential violations. They then filed an appeal of my written interpretations. So that also goes to the BOCC next week, and Maura's working hard on that one.
how does that work?
I
Does one appeal?
So people can request a written interpretation of the land use code. And that is considered an official administrator's decision, and my administrative decisions are appealable to the Board of County Commissioners. So if somebody just sends me an email and they don't like the content, that's not appealable. It has to be an official action as recommended by the code or required by the code. And yeah, we've had a few of these, over the last, couple of years. And then, the housing code update is continuing. We had our, strategic stakeholder roundtable meeting on Monday, with, some good discussion. The preliminary code audit is on our website, so if you haven't seen it and you want to read it, go ahead and, take a look at that. And of course, all the meetings are recorded, and available on our YouTube channel, for anybody who wants to go back and listen. But the meeting had some breakout groups, and so some good discussion within those groups as well. And we'll be preparing a meeting summary, our consultant will, and we'll get that online. So if you go to the Housing Code Update webpage, we actually have a project document section, and that's where everything gets posted, along with the updates. We haven't set our next meeting yet. So yeah, I don't know right now when that's gonna be. I think maybe January.
I think that's what they sent out. I have the happy duty of sitting on that.
Yeah,
And our breakout session was pretty valuable, but
yeah.
I have to wonder, is there any intention to set up anything in the way of more focused, topically focused task groups? Because we were kind of all over the map in our breakout.
Yeah, and we knew that, so within the room, we had, we actually broke out into two groups. Because one was talking more about the land use code, and then the other group was talking more about process and, developer incentives. And so there was that focus there, but because the breakout, the virtual breakout room was going to be what it was going to be.
Yeah.
We knew that was going to be the potpourri room.
Okay. Yeah, I was in that group, so.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it.
And, you know, and that's totally okay. And then we also, since Logan Simpson was here, they did a couple more listening sessions where people could drop in and talk to them over at the library, and I think there were a few people that took advantage of that. So, but you know, we'll continue letting people know what's going on and when. Other than that, I'm looking forward to a couple of weeks of relative quiet in terms of planning world before we dive right back into things.
It's been a busy quarter, to say the least.
Yes.
Commissioners, any questions for the staff? Thoughts or concerns?
Does it look like we'll have a meeting in January?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We've already got a number of things set for that agenda.
I'm gonna be on Zoom for that.
Okay. There will potentially be a site visit, but if you want to do something ahead of time, just let staff know and we can go down there with you.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Where is the site visit?
It'll be in Ilium. You know, we were supposed to have one today, but shortly Nicola will tell you all about why.
Okay. In the context of one of our items.
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right, next item on the agenda is a continuance of the Ilium Industrial Park Owners Association and substantial PUD amendment. Now, we don't need to take any action on this.
Yes, you do.
Okay,
Um,
we'll need a motion to continue to January meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And we just have not received comments back from CDOT yet, regarding that intersection, and believe that CDOT realized there was a part of a 10-year plan. And Randy needed to have some meetings with her supervisor. And then we're also still working with the applicant to really finish out that updated application. So for multiple reasons, gonna be continued to January 8th at your regular meeting and first meeting of 2026. So if you have any questions or are ready to make a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion.
Please.
Ready? I make a motion to move the IPOA substantial PUD amendment application to the planning commission's regularly scheduled January 8th, 2026 meeting.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. In favor?
Right.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention Robin is online.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Robin, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
So do you want to include Robin on the vote?
Yeah, Robin, did you come in time to hear the discussion on this item?
Yes, I'm in favor of the continuance.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's 4. Next item on the agenda was to be a land use application from Telluride Land Works for a special use permit. Gathered that. Oh, I'm gonna come back. So. That you want us to. What's the term?
Well, we've got a couple of options in here. So if you recall at the prior meeting, a letter was submitted to us from the neighbors' representatives, raising a number of questions related to the land use code and how it applies to this property. Maura, our attorney, along with John, did a lot of work researching that, looking into that, and realized that the questions raised have impacts beyond this single project. So we had put in the agenda that it was to be tabled, but you actually have a number of options here. If you table it in order to allow us to continue to work on a potential code amendment that would resolve this issue and also resolve a number of other collateral issues that affect many other properties. You could table it, and we know that, whenever it's resumed for whatever reason, we would have to completely restart the notice. The other option is to have a motion to continue. And if so, I would recommend that it be March, knowing that, the applicant is hoping to get resolution in time for the spring season. But that's really about the earliest that we think we would be able to tell you whether or not we have a land use code amendment resolution or, resolved. Mean that in both ways. So, yeah, looking at the March 12th meeting for a continuance, the applicant could withdraw their application. It's also an option to deny. You would need to give us direction on how to prepare a resolution. So those are kind of your options that are out there today. Maura did prepare a memo to you about, the issues, and she can get into that.
Good memo. What are the planning impact of the proposed, or maybe that's not time to get into that. What's the impact on the applicant of tabling versus continuing?
Mostly having to redo notice. tabling, doesn't give us a specific date to pick it up again. Whereas continuance, it gives us a target date, and if March comes and things aren't resolved, then we, move on and figure out the next step.
I had a question. In thinking about how to maybe help resolve this. While we're also working on updating the land use code to better reflect what's actually happening. If I'm not mistaken, the property where they're asking for the permit, the piece that was divided off that's adjacent to it, is it still owned by the same property owner?
Yeah, I believe it.
So if they could show that they were in fact leasing both pieces of property, which gets them well over the 35 acres, could we then move forward with looking at the SUP before we amend the land use code?
This is Tom Kennedy. I didn't raise my hand. Can I talk or?
We don't.
Yeah. So Tom is the property owner's representative.
Okay, Tom, if you can offer some clarification, sure.
Yeah, I was just on that one point. I think it was split off and it's not owned by the same property owner now. Because otherwise, yeah, we would have said, oh, well, we've got the requisite acreage, so it's not an issue. So I don't believe that's the case. I'll look at it, but I don't believe that's the case, or I'm sure that's what we would have done.
Okay,
That's a good thought.
Yeah,
I can clarify that.
okay.
So original 40.
You need to,
10 watt.
you need to come up.
can you come up to the mic?
Right.
Thanks.
Sorry about
No, sorry.
that. 10 watt. So the original 40 acre parcel was owned by Donna Cornforth and her husband. They broke off 10 acres for her daughter Bobby and Gary Moore. Paul ended up buying the property from the 30 acres from Donna. The 10 acre parcel was purchased by Randall Thompson 10 years ago or so. And he passed away a couple months ago. So that's where the problem.
And didn't we hear from his daughter?
You did, Tara
In the public
Alexander.
comments for the application?
Tara Alexander, yeah, she.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll leave it to the applicant to decide if that presents an opportunity to get above the 35 acre threshold.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
I was just saying, we'll look at it, but that could create a different set of issues to, taking a 10 acre parcel and carving that up. I don't know that quite gets us there. I think that the larger issue that Maura addressed in her memo is, hey, there's the code doesn't line up with the longstanding interpretation that you guys have. So let's get the code updated so it covers all the other properties that these special use permit applications are being granted. And then this one can come back without that issue in place. Frankly, a continuance to March probably works just as fine. I don't know that if we tabled it, then we're renoticing, reactivating, and we could do courtesy notices, when we're coming back. But I think it just, in terms of trying to keep the process moving forward, it could work a little better if you were inclined to continue it to the March date. And if we're not ready, then you could continue it another month if that's what's necessary.
Yeah, thanks for the input, Tom, appreciate it. Does the staff have a preference? You spelling out our options so we know what choices.
Yeah. At this time, I think the continuance to March 12th would probably be my preference. Just to allow us time to keep working on this.
I'll open up for public comment, just think. Okay. Anything else, Kate? No?
No, Maura, do you want to add anything?
Unless there's questions about the memo, I think hopefully you all had an opportunity to read it. It seems you understand the issue that's been identified.
Yeah. And we have prepared a draft land use code amendment. It is out for review agency consideration. The text is available on our land use code as always, or on our webpage as always. Right now, we anticipate having that on the January Planning Commission agenda.
So the applicant would be prevented from using the site until it's resolved, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, for the uses that are related to special use permit, there's uses that are by right that wouldn't be affected.
Right, the greenhouse and stuff.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's correct.
Okay. Start thinking, guys.
I think continuing sounds like the best option here.
I think we need to bring the code in line with the practice. I can understand that there's some frustration if the impetus for making that change feels like it's directed specifically at this
Mhm.
situation, but I think sometimes that's how it happens. I do think courtesy notice, if we do a continuance, is important.
Yeah.
So that people know.
We can put that in.
Yeah.
The request time. Robin, any thoughts?
I agree with the continuance.
Okay. All right, let's do a motion. Whose turn is
Did
it?
you want to have
Oh,
public comment?
sorry. Okay, given all that, then let's open up the matter to public comment. And I'll alternate between in-house and online. And I'll start with in-house. And yes, ma'am.
Morning, Stephanie Solomon on behalf of Ken and CJ Watt. I see I'm facing a little bit of an uphill battle right now since y'all seem interested in continuing till March. But I'm here today to request on behalf of the Watts that you actually deny the application at this time. And further that you postpone any hearing on this land use code amendment until at least February and not put it on the agenda in January. I did submit a more detailed letter to the commissioners a couple of days ago, and so I'm not gonna totally go through that now, but I'll give you 4 main reasons why the application should be denied today. First of all, we believe the land use code language is clear and unambiguous, and I think we're all agreeing right now it does not clearly allow a second principal use. So we have an application applying for a second principal use, and it's not allowed under the land use code, and so it should be denied. You also asked the applicant at the November hearing to provide additional information, specifically an updated site plan addressing all of the neighbors' concerns. They failed to do so. They didn't even meet with John Hubner to discuss what should be included in the site plan. Land Use Code Section 3-602B allows you to continue an application if you're waiting on new additional information. Here, not only did they fail to provide new additional information since the last hearing, but they're not providing new additional information for the continuance. The only reason for the continuance is to process the land use code amendment. So I don't think 3-602B allows you to table the application at this point. I think you have to deny it. We're also concerned that if the application's tabled or continued, that it'll be considered a pending application, which would prejudice the Watts in that during this land use code amendment process, they're not going to be able to freely speak about this specific application with you all or even the county commissioners. And lastly, why the application should be denied today is because we believe that the proposed land use code amendment, which we haven't seen yet, it wasn't part of these materials that were posted online, but we're going to argue for some new and additional review standards that would be applicable to allowing a special use on substandard size parcels. And these additional review standards would actually change the code and impact future applications to make it more stringent to have second principal uses on small parcels of land. So for these reasons, we believe the application, we request you deny it today and not continue it. And the applicant would not be prejudiced. They just have to reapply down the road. It costs a couple $100 for a new application and a new public notice. And we don't think that's a big prejudice to them. And then lastly, on this land use code amendment, the staff wants to put it on the January hearing, but we're almost at the holiday. We are kind of in the holiday season, and this land use code amendment is going to affect a huge number of people not present in the room today. It's not just all the people affected on the dozens of substandard parcels, perhaps on Wrights Mesa, that are going to be affected, but this appears to be countywide. And there's going to be a lot more public input with this land use code amendment because it will greatly affect what's going on Wrights Mesa and smaller parcels of land. So we think it's appropriate to wait and get the public more involved and allow people who are going to be really affected to be in attendance at this January 8th or at the next on the first hearing of the land use code amendment. Thank you.
Anyone online care to ask questions or comment? How many do we have? Just the 5?
Is Tom
Tom.
trying to raise his hand?
Figure that out.
Yes. Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, I think that that denying it doesn't make really isn't the right way to proceed. This thing's getting stayed, if you will, while the land use code issues are being fixed. And the comments about how the applicant didn't do anything. Yeah, there was a list, and we started down that list, and then the county staff suggested that there's a technical issue with the land use code, and so we need to make sure that there's a process, to deal with that issue. If there isn't, then there is not a path forward, or arguably, at least that there's a different path forward. So to suggest that it should be denied because we didn't submit stuff, that doesn't seem to make sense to me, when the first thing we're doing is trying to deal with the threshold issue. And while that threshold issue is being dealt with, I had some conversations with the applicant, the applicant's team, and the owners, and they're looking and working on getting that stuff done, and they'll continue to do it, and anticipate if land use code amendments adjust it and correct it, and update it, then they'll be submitting that information to you. And I think it'll be a helpful submittal at that point in time as you're resuming your review of it. So, and frankly, I mean, if you were inclined to deny it, we could just withdraw it. I don't see. So I think the notion of the continuance, I'd still advocate for that. I think that's the right approach. And work on the land use code, and the applicant will continue to work on their materials, and look forward to getting back in front of you when the land use code amendment is done, assuming that it's done and does support the application. If it doesn't, then we'll have to have another conversation, or a different conversation.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Commissioners. Nate Smith. I'm a representative for the applicant. I know we're kind of dueling here with Tom as counsel for the property owner, but I do want to reiterate what Tom did just say. After the last planning commission meeting, we did immediately start diving into some of the matters discussed and the conditions discussed at the last meeting. I think the day after, the morning after. It was pretty quick at that point that we heard from staff essentially asserting that we kind of back off, give them some time to look into this matter. So it was at that point, upon staff's guidance, that we held off and agreed to work with staff and let them work through this process. We're fully supportive, as Tom mentioned, of going forward with a continuance and kind of seeing where we end up in March and going from there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anyone online? Anyone else in the room like to speak?
Hello again. Hi, I'm Ken Watt. My wife CJ and I own property adjacent to the shared property here. And gonna go forward with where we are today, a little bit, some background and how I think why this should be denied today. So I'm a general contractor. We work every day in this county. You know, here's the IRC that we have to comply with every day. I would have brought the rest of them, but there's a weight limit on the elevator out here, so I couldn't get them up. So, you know, I comply with the IRC, the IBC, the land use code, the National Fire Protection Code, the electric code, the plumbing code. I have to comply with that every day. If I don't, I can't get a CO to finish a house from the county. So those are the rules I have to comply with. You know, another thing, I'm the chair of the board of review for the building department. When an appeal comes in, we as a board, you know, look at this objectively, individually, but when we make a decision, it has to be based on the code. That protects everybody in place. It protects the person applying for it, protects the building department, it protects the county, but it has to be done by the code. And the code is what's in front of us to work with. You know, several years, I don't know, there's some of you old enough in here to remember Gary Hodges, he used to be a building inspector here in town, or for the county for 20 some years. I think he took over for Jan Dunnington. When Gary retired, the county couldn't get a building inspector. So Lynn Black, Steve Zwick, and Mike Rosinski called me in, said, Ken, will you do our building inspections for us? So I did for almost a year. I did your building inspections. But it was pretty simple. Because the code was put in front of me. Board of review. They take and compile all the codes, and which we're doing now, we're going to bring to you this winter for a code update. So we compile all this, bring it to Planning Commission. You guys approve it, send it over to BOCC. Those are the rules. Those are the rules of the game to play with. And this is how we have to apply them. And it includes the land use code. Those are the rules. So CJ and I, we've been here since '87, and we bought our first 40 there adjacent to Donna Cordforth in 1994. We knew what the rules were because the land use code on substandard parcels was the same then as it is now. We knew there wouldn't be a second use adjacent to us at that time. So we purchased the property. We spotted where we were going to build our house, and we built our house there based on no second use adjacent to us. Now it appears the rules want to change. Now, with this specific parcel, you have to think of it this way a little bit. So originally Donna had a 40-acre parcel. She broke off 10 for her daughter. So what 40-acre parcel would have been one use plus a second principal use, right? Now we've broken it in two pieces. There are two uses on that 40-acre parcel currently. If there is a change to the land use code to allow second uses on substandard parcels, that 40-acre parcel now turns into 4 uses. So you can see how this can compound on you down the road. As you look at this, think about that. So next to us, there'd be 4 uses, possibly. As you're looking forward down the road to amending the land use code, which it's going to happen. I can just see that. We can all see this. As you're looking at specifically the Wrights Mesa parcels and changing the land use code that affects those, I want you to be very diligent with the Wrights Mesa master plan. and make sure any land use code changes conform to the master plan, which were the wishes of the people when it was written.
And you understand that there'll be a full set of hearings and another opportunity to weigh in.
I
and we're
understand.
crafting all
I
that.
understand.
Okay. So
It's
to
my
this
time, you know,
Understand?
my
But
time
to
to
this
take it.
application,
So, you know, again, along with the codes that are written that are in front of us today, and how these are processed through the chain, I suggest you deny the application today and let them open it another day after we get through with the land use code now. So, thanks for your time.
okay, thanks for that. Don't see any hands raised online. In person, any other folks like to speak? Okay. We will close public comments, return to our considerations. I have a question. If an application has been filed and is in pending status, does that change in land use code while that application is in pending status normally impact that application? Because my understanding was otherwise.
So if the code is changed in a way that would change the requirements that the application needs to meet, typically no, that wouldn't apply to an application that's already been submitted and deemed complete. In this case, you know, the applicant could request that the application be reviewed under the code as it exists at the time that you pick up the review. And it's not quite like we're changing the special use review criteria or something like that. At least as it's being put into concept today, that could evolve as you go through the code amendment process, of course. But I think that's something that could be dealt with when you pick this application, if and when you pick this application back up, resolving that question. And Kay might have something to add to that, but typically, no, you wouldn't, you know, if the code changes while an application's pending, they wouldn't be held to those new standards.
Right. It's like if the building code changes after you got your permits, it'd be
Right.
kind of the same thing.
Right.
Along those lines, isn't it the case that if we look at a land use code amendment application or proposal, nobody during that hearing would be able to speak to a specific application or property? That's not how we do it. It would have to be general, no matter who was participating, correct?
So land use code amendments are a legislative action. This one would be a bit tricky in that information could be conveyed that potentially could influence a future decision that's quasi judicial. We've certainly had code amendments in the past where we knew that there was going to be a property specific application. And you and the commissioners, you know, as decision makers, have done well to separate that out. As we've pointed out, and as Maura brought up in her memo, we want to be sure that we're being equitable to everybody. And we have some real concerns about how the code has been applied in the past. And if we don't change, you know, update the code, what are the ramifications? And that's something that we'll talk about within the land use code amendment process rather than today. But there is definitely a bigger picture in here that we want to be everybody to be fully aware of and contemplate.
I mean, is it the case that people who are concerned about this situation might be limited in their participation in a land use code amendment meeting if it's tabled or continued rather than denied? I guess that's what I'm trying to get clarity.
Yeah, I would hope that, they wouldn't get into the, specific details of a proposal, but rather stick to the bigger question of, everybody always uses their own filter, their own experiences. I don't imagine that we would be telling people, no, you can't talk about this, within that hearing.
But if we deny it, just to like clear the slate while we deal with this land use code amendment, so that there's nothing kind of hanging over it while we're working on it. What is the real downside for the applicant? They have to pay again. They have to have a
Mhm.
complete application again, but they're gonna
Yeah.
have to add a lot of material to the application that exists anyway. What are the other downsides?
As opposed to the applicant withdrawing their application.
Mhm. That's another option. That's, at their discretion as to whether or not they want to withdraw and then resubmit.
Either way,
Yeah.
either way, it requires a resubmission.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I think that given that the county has basically said, yes, there's a conflict here in the code
Yeah.
that has to be addressed. I think
And-
there is something to be said for not having this hanging over us while we're looking at
Yeah.
making that change.
And I guess the other thing that comes in here is, so this came about because a complaint was filed with us about a potential code violation. We did the research, determined that yes, in fact, there was a violation. And at that point, upon issuance of the notice of violation, one, we stopped, they're stopped from using the property. And two, to correct it, they applied for this application. So if we deny it, it puts it right now, they're in a correction process for that notice of violation. Denial or withdrawal throws us back to kind of, the beginning of the violation proceedings again. So,
They're not trying to correct this bigger issue that has come up. They're trying
right,
to correct it based on a premise that we've all discovered doesn't really hold.
And if they're still in violation, so I would think they would still be
yeah.
subject. to
Well,
remediation.
I guess what the,
Robin,
the if we were to deny it or they would withdraw it, then the next step in terms of curing the violation is removal of the use from the property. And I don't think they want to do that either. So, I mean, we're trying to reach resolution. We're trying to do it. We're trying to solve, other problems that have come up as well. Yeah, Robin, go ahead.
Thank you. Regarding the difference between continuing or tabling, does that change anything in this timeline or process? And secondly, I'm hearing what Jocelyn's saying and listening to, are we about to visit changes to the land use code or updates to the land use code that will bring multiple parties out of violation of the code as it stands today to accommodate sort of the trend of what's happened? Or because I don't think changing or updating a land use code to correct violations, I'm not sure that's the right process. I think that if there's rules in the land use code and they're being violated, or there's a conflict that needs that, I guess I'm not really understanding the land use code piece totally yet, but it seems to me that that's sort of a backwards approach to change the land use code to, or update it to get people out of violation. I think people should correct their violations under the current code until the code is changed, in which case it seems like from the process that you were explaining, Kay, as the administrative process through this, that this applicant would want to see if the land, if there's favorable support to make those amendments or changes to the code, and then resubmit under the new, more favorable updates to the code. If the general public or the general sense is not approving those changes or updates to the code because the majority of people want people to adhere to the code as it was written, then anybody in the county or Wrights Mesa that's in violation of the code needs to correct those things. So in hearing what Jocelyn was saying, it almost seems like it's to the advantage of the applicant to let the land use code issue play out and then resubmit if it's more favorable to them after that process is done.
Okay, good thinking. And to your question, the primary difference is.
I was just gonna add, the whole process started when we were notified of a complaint and a notice of violation was sent out. It's been the policy of San Miguel County to try to give people an opportunity to come into compliance with the land use code. And that was presented to the property owner and to the applicant to do that. And so they submitted an application to attempt to bring their property or their use into compliance. And part of that was the submission of the application. This was found, as, no fault of the application. And I personally think, tabling the application is probably still rather than just continuing it, because it kind of leaves the applicant dormant. It's not going to be something that we're going to be discussing during the land use code portions of the meeting. And then if the land use code is updated and they're able to continue with if we're able to continue with our review of the application, they at that time can either say, you know what, it didn't come through, and so we're going to withdraw our application at this point. And they still have that opportunity to do that rather than requiring them to do it today, or rather than, ultimately denying the application. This fault was found through no fault of the applicant or of the neighbors. And I think it would behoove us to give it a chance to play out.
Yeah. And also I want to make it clear that the code amendment that we've drafted and are, currently have circulating was not created solely to solve this property's problem. It was created because we realized that the county over a number of years has issued SUPs for various uses on legally non-conforming lots. And so we have to look at how do we solve that bigger problem. I mean, whether or not the SUP on this property will be allowed is not decided. And even with the code amendment, it's not decided until you finish the SUP process. But we do have a very legitimate question of how do we resolve what were apparently SUPs issued in error in the past? And is there a resolution to that so that we aren't going to have more of these come up as moving forward? And
That's a pretty big rock we're dropping into that little pond. Yes.
And I would just add to that, I don't think we would classify those properties that had already been issued an SUP as being in violation because we've approved that use. The fact that we've now identified this issue in our code is our problem, not the property owners that have permits.
What's that term, approved non-compliance? Conformed, non-conforming?
Yeah,
Non-conforming.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Robin, go ahead.
You're on mute,
You're
Robin.
still muted.
That's okay. That's my exact point, that if we've identified that the county or the department, planning department issued SUPs in, I mean, the whole point of an SUP is that it's a special use that is outside of the code. And so to go change the code to now bring all those in compliance, that doesn't seem like the way to solve it. Then it just takes all the SUPs into compliance, so there's nothing special use about them anymore. And if enough neighbors or community members are saying, okay, yeah, what's been done in the past is done, but we don't want to see that continue or just be completely open to be non-special use but status quo, that was exactly what I was addressing, is that I'm not really sure that changing the code to bring prior issued special use permits or approved special use permits now into compliance, which just opens the door for lots more of those uses to no longer be considered special but standard.
That's not correct.
Okay, so I guess I'm not understanding that, but that was my question. I'm
Yeah.
the way I heard you say that was that previous staff or planning department issued special uses or SUPs in error of
the county meaning either the planning commission through a one-step process or the planning commission and the BOCC through a two-step process approves special use permits using the whole SUP process, but missing the detail of that they were legally non-conforming, meaning legally created, but less than the minimum lot size for that zone district. And missing the detail that's that, and we don't want to go, pull up exactly how we're, the whole why and wherefore the code. That's not today. That's another meeting. But we identified an oversight in past consideration of SUPs, which is, it was an error on the county's part. And we want to have the discussion of how we try to resolve those. And we don't even know for sure exactly how many. We do know there's a significant number. There may be more out there that we haven't yet found. This project has been kind of the catalyst for the discovery. We're trying to, figure out our path forward. That's why I recommend the continuance is just allow us time to work on this.
Okay. Yes, Tom.
Yep, so just a couple of 2 cents. I continue to think that the continuance is the appropriate move. And I think that just so everyone knows, the special uses is to allow uses on that are not otherwise permitted by right. So it's a process to judge the uses. This is a technical issue of the size of the lot. And so it wasn't a special exception to allow use on a lot of a certain size. Rather, it was to allow a particular use. So Robin, that's kind of the nature of the special use, and the threshold issue is what's the acreage you need to support it. You may find in your conversations, the land use code amendment, that maybe you want to say that for parcels that have already been approved. you're endorsing those and blessing them. You might not want to let new projects that are coming forward have the ability to use this. Who knows? That'll be something that you'll be having a conversation about. But we're here because we did get a violation of land use code that some of our uses and activities that have been going on for quite some time were viewed as requiring a special use permit from the county, unless and until we did apply for it and secure that approval, that we would be in violation of the code. So that's what we did. We submitted and we applied for it. We were moving down the path of doing it when this threshold issue of the acreage came into play. I think it's important to keep this application pending in case you do want to make a determination that you're going to have some kind of cutoff date as to when you're going to grant these approvals for parcels that might otherwise be under that threshold limit. And we'd want to make sure that we got a pending application so that we're counted towards that. And I think that as you're going through your review process of the land use code, you're not going to be talking about specifics of this project and the compatibility requirements. You're going to be talking about it general. And Mr. Watt and Stephanie, can certainly come in and talk about what criteria they might think is appropriate. It may well apply to this property, it could apply to other property, but we think that keeping the application pending, let you guys do your work on the land use code amendment. Whatever adjustments come as a result of that land use code amendment, then the applicant and my client, the owner, would know how they're going to proceed with moving forward on the application. And we certainly would recognize that the way that the code stands now, if it were applied to us, we wouldn't be able to pursue the special use permit. So we certainly would be open and expect to comply with whatever the new code standards apply for. So it's important so that we maintain the understandings that we had with the county so that we're not in violation of what the county's notice of violation said. We're not expanding upon or doing anything that the county sent us notice saying here were the issues that we were concerned. We've done a lot of work to remove some of the things that were also in the notice. So we're kind of holding steady ground where we are while we're letting you work through your land use code amendment and then giving us the opportunity to come back with the special use permit that would conform with your updated standards. But it's going to be important to keep that application pending. Thanks.
Thanks, Tom. If
Comment from the box.
we've closed the public.
Well, but in fairness, since you let Tom
I
speak.
did let Tom speak, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, come on up.
Thank you. I'll be really quick. I think it's clear the current land use code does not allow this special use. So if you had had this information in November and you asked the county attorney then how she weighed in on that, if she had said, yes, I agree with Chris Hawkins' email letter that this land use code as written today does not allow a special use on a substandard size parcel, she agrees with that. If she had told you that on November 13th at the last hearing, I don't want to be too presumptuous, but I think you might have denied the application outright then. And I don't think it's any different a month later. Thanks.
Kay, given that the property is in non-compliance at this point.
Do you want to close the public comment?
Oh, yes, thank you. We'll reclose the public comment. I need all the help I can get up here.
Yeah.
If we were to move to deny the application, what would be the practical effect in terms of the current non-compliance?
It would mean that their proposed resolution of the violation would no longer be happening. And we'd have to have discussions internally as to what it means, but it could, result in a, updated notice of violation saying to remove the use. We are in the middle of winter, activity's not occurring. They've agreed that they're not going to continue with the activity right now. So
there's doesn't sound like there's much of a practical difference between a postponement and denial.
Not much. And, it still remains that when you, resume this hypothetically on March 12th, that you'll make your decision based on the evidence in front of you at that time. But we'll at least have been able to have the conversation about the non-conforming lot question.
Yes, sir. We've closed the public comment, I'm afraid. If I open it back up to you, I'll have to open it back up to everybody.
I would have to open it back up.
I would have to open it back up to everybody. At this point, I think we're,
Well,
sit tight. I think we're gonna make some movement here. I don't usually do this, but I'm gonna make a motion.
We have a motion already.
No,
No,
she started, we
no.
stopped.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop the motion. We didn't get that. Unless Jocelyn wants to take the reign, I'm gonna make a motion to deny the application. And my reasoning is we have an applicant with lengthy non-compliance that the neighbors have had to deal with. We have some hard work ahead of us to rectify the ambiguities and conflicts within the land use code. I have knowledge from my participation in the housing code task force that's meeting, that one of the topics that's been raised repeatedly is that one of the methods for possibly improving the ability to build housing is to revisit the county's 35-acre minimum size lot subject to subdivision, which is, deep in the weeds of that, but my point being that there are other factors in play in regards to the county's lot size regulations that may well come up in the conversation about land use code amendment. I think there's something to the issue of leaving the application pending in terms of the quote unquote muzzling effect. We all can't talk about a pending application. And I think that would make the conversations about a land use code change somewhat stilted and limited. And I think that there's a public perception issue. I would rather address the land use code changes that we need to make free and clear of the implication that we're holding off on an application so that we can fix land use code for them. I know that that's not what we're doing, but our reality and public perception don't always line up. So.
Well said, I second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Yeah, and it should be, you should also include that staff will prepare the denial resolution for consideration at the January 8th meeting. We have to adopt this by resolution, and we don't have a resolution today.
Right.
So based on, prepare a denial resolution based on the findings stated herein for consideration at the January 8th meeting.
At which point we could make it final or not, right?
It's your choice.
Can we got all that? I'll accept that as an incorporation into the motion.
Does your second accept that from the
Robin, you accept that clarification?
What was the clarification? I'm sorry.
The language that Kay offered in terms of directing staff to prepare a resolution for consideration at the next meeting. Because we have to have a resolution to do this, to decline.
I accept that language.
I have a question. Before we vote, can we offer the applicant the opportunity to withdraw the application?
Yes.
That seems reasonable. Would either council care to have a short recess or need to have a short recess?
Yeah, a short recess would be helpful.
Okay, we have 10:06. We'll reconvene 10:15, okay?
Sure.
Okay, we'll reconvene at 10:15. Thanks.
And people are in violation.
All right, the Thursday, December 11th, 2025 meeting of the San Miguel County Planning Commission now reconvened. I see counsel for the applicant at the microphone.
Thank you. The applicant is okay with withdrawing the application at this time, but we need some guidance related to what to do in the meantime with the current uses that exist on the property. We would like no fines while the county sorts this out.
Yeah,
And no vote violations.
yeah, we don't have the ability to impose fines for this short of, I mean, we'd have to go all the way through court. I do not believe we would be proceeding with that at all. So I think that's safe to say we will not pursue that.
And how would the notice of violation process work out?
We will need to have a discussion with Matt Gonzalez, our building official, and I think what we'll do is, give us a few moments, a few days to have that discussion, and we'll be reaching out to you on, what's next.
Okay, do you need a motion from us asking you to do that?
No,
On the record?
no, however, because the application is withdrawn, your motion should be withdrawn.
I agree. I'm prepared to do that. I don't know if I have to say I move to withdraw, but
Or you can just state you withdraw your motion.
I withdraw the motion. And Robin?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, motion withdrawn.
Does that work for you, Nate?
Sure, I guess that's
That's as much as I can really say right
situation
now.
we're in, sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks very much. Next item on the agenda, land use
Can I
planning.
say something before we move on?
You may.
I think this was probably the appropriate resolution for the moment, but this is a really tough situation, and I agree with Mr. Hubner that we generally try to find resolution, and in this case, I don't think it's possible right now because of this other can of worms that was opened and because, as you said, the longstanding non-compliance. But I hope that in the meantime, while we work on the land use code, that there's just some like neighborly grace in terms of, obviously they can't operate there, but just giving some time to let it all sit before more is resolved.
Neighborly grace is something that the West End is pretty good at.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
As the owner of the property, am I still considered public comment?
I believe we could take some comments in the context of the withdrawal of the application. Sure, go ahead.
Well, quickly, my name's Paul Sherry, and I started coming here in the 70s. I moved here in 89, and I started a landscaping business, and I purchased that property at the turn of the century. Sort of the Wild West out there, but I had my lawyer, Mike Wentworth, Hal Jordan, Karen Henderson told me that use by right agriculture and tree houses and nurseries. We've been there for 20 years. I've been running the business. The landscaping business, 99% of it happens out of the mountain village. We don't do any retail sales. It's been quiet in that area. There is a substantial amount of product on that property that deals with trees, bushes, and plants that would substantially harm the business, which is the largest landscaping snow removal business up here now in the Telluride region. So we're talking a substantial amount of harm over something I think we can resolve. It's not that what I view after being there 20 years and then seeing Matt leasing the place for 6 years. It didn't seem to me things changed too much except for a period of time. And that will not be repeated and that will be corrected. And I think we can simply focus on what we need to correct. And I really think the continuance is the way to go. If we withdraw, we're going back to square one, and time is an issue for landscaping in terms of the spring. This winter gives us a lot of time to work these things out. We've been more than willing to adjust the violations that have been levied against the property. And I think those are, we certainly corrected a lot of stuff. The property's in good shape. It's always been kept in fairly good shape. There have been some problems. I got some calls from Ken and we corrected that over 10 years. Or the 20 years that I've been down there. Ken got topsoil from us, let him use my excavator. He's got a big dump truck in his driveway, I guess, you know, I don't know if there's a special use for that. But we've worked fine and we're willing to make this work better because what's at stake here is livelihoods and 60 people that work for us year round. So I guess my note is still to continue it, to allow us to do some things on the property, to understand our limits, so we don't get phone calls from the opposition all the time about this tree's in the wrong place and this truck went to the wrong place. The property is not going to grow that much. We use about 4 or 5 acres. The rest of the property has been untouched. I put a pond there and not just a hole for water for cattle. I landscaped it. It's over an acre with an island and a lot of trees. A lot of neighbors have said how nice that makes that property look. So we're trying to be good neighbors down there. Some mistakes, but I think this has got blown out of proportion. I think it's a land grab and I don't understand the vitriol and wanting to red tag us and not allow us to use by right that we're trying to use. So I just wanted to clear that up with the county, that we can do some things down there so we can keep functioning, but within the realm that's agreeable to the commission and the panel.
Well, as I stated in my motion rationale, for me, the issue is the land use code.
I understand.
Restriction. It's not a comment on the quality of your application. That would be decided when we take it back up again, because I'm sure you will resubmit it.
Okay, well, you gotta understand the time factor in terms of landscaping. Right now, nothing's going on down there on the property, very little. And it's been like that for 25 years in the winter. So, but spring things start to happen. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Okay, so the motion to deny has been withdrawn and the second withdrawn, and the applicant has withdrawn the application.
Yes.
On to item number 5, land use code amendment recommendation regarding short-term rentals. Who's led?
That's Nicola.
Or taken?
Alrighty, thank you, commissioners. We have a pretty simple, straightforward land use code amendment for you today.
Hope so.
Yes, relating to section 5-3001, short-term rentals. So little background, land use code amendments can be initiated by county staff or a board or president. In this case, it was county staff. We have identified that there is no longer a need to ask short-term rental licensees to obtain their own Colorado sales tax license if they are advertising exclusively through an online platform or rental management company like Airbnb or VRBO, etc. Because those companies are already have a sales tax license and are remitting taxes on their behalf. It's been kind of a long-standing struggle, in fact, over the past few years, asking licensees to get these sales tax licenses. It's been our thinking that we wanted folks to get the licenses even if they were using Airbnb, just in case one day they decided, you know what, we don't want to use Airbnb anymore and we're going to make our own website and advertise ourselves. But recently, the Department of Revenue through the state of Colorado has asked holders of inactive sales tax license accounts to close them, which would be the case if you're using Airbnb, Airbnb is remitting taxes on your behalf. You got this sales tax license because it's one of our requirements and it's just sitting empty. And I think it's just been a kind of a paperwork, thing for the Department of Revenue that they would really rather people to not have open sales tax license accounts that are not in use. So for applicants that are not using Airbnb, they will still be, or another platform, they would still be required to obtain a sales tax license. But if you're exclusively using a platform that's remitting taxes on your behalf, you would no longer be required to obtain that sales tax license. So here's another slide just clarifying that it would be to eliminate the requirement for short-term rental license holders who are exclusively using that online advertising platform or rental management company that remits the taxes on their behalf, that they would no longer be required to obtain that sales tax license. Short-term rental license holders who are not utilizing an online rental management platform will still be required to obtain that license. So we're basically giving folks two options now in the land use code. This is the first step of this amendment. You all will make the recommendation to the board. So in this case, the public notice was published just via way of this agenda, which was posted last week in the Times and the Norwood Post on December 4th. We did refer this land use code update to the county attorney, county manager, deputy county manager, the county treasurer, county finance director, and then all of the towns within the county. Maura did have a comment just relating to CDOR, which stands for Colorado Department of Revenue, that should be fully written out, and that was incorporated into the version of the land use code amendment that was in your packet. So that's already taken care of. And then Ramona Rummel had given a comment to me after the packet was already created, but she had reached out to the Department of Revenue just to confirm whether or not we should be requiring folks to get a lodging tax license. And they confirmed that the sales tax license does cover that. And that's all that's necessary. And if if their rental management company already has a sales tax license, they agree, please don't require people to get their own. So the review standards for a land use code amendment relate to that it's drafted in a form consistent with the organizational format and style of the code, which it was. And that section 1-4, 400 has a couple of policies relating to the land use code. In this case, this fits under to simplify the application and review process for the regulatory system. And then here's your sample motion, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, first question is this your first land use code?
Yeah.
Staff?
I have one question. What is the oversight? Like, do people with these short-term licenses every year have to submit something to the county?
Every 2 years.
And then they have to, I guess, list like where they're listing their property, how they're.
Yeah, we ask people to, if they're on any platform they're using, to list their permit license number. And we're just gonna ask folks to tell us, are you advertising this on your own? If so, you need to get this sales tax license. And if you're not, then, and I frankly don't think anybody in this day and age is not using Airbnb or something similar to that. So I think it's gonna be pretty rare that we actually see someone who's like, yeah, I have my own website for my one rental house. Typically, it's gonna be a website with multiple houses. That site will have a sales tax license and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So if we recommend to the Board of County Commissioners this land use code change, how do the licensees find out?
Well, they'll
Because
find
They
it.
weren't, we didn't refer to the database of licensees.
Yeah, I mean, I can guarantee nobody who's getting a short-term rental license is gonna have a problem with this. Because they've been, you know, in fact, battling to not have to get this, for years, and they'll know when they come to reapply every 2 years for their sales, for their short-term rental license, and we say, we don't ask them for their sales tax license. But it will be published, notified, you know, in the newspaper and whatnot prior to that Board of County Commissioners meeting.
Yeah, and if this code amendment's adopted, we do have our database of short-term rental permittees that includes their contact info. So, you know, we can reach out to them and say, you do not need to renew your DOR license. I mean, we can be proactive that way. We just hadn't thought that far ahead.
Just having a couple of these, so I had time to think of them. Do we need to include any kind of suggestion along those lines in the motion? Probably not, you guys.
No.
Okay. Okay, Robin, anything from you?
No comments from me on this.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
and I don't think we have anybody left that's members of the public, but you should double check. Unless-
Sitting here because I don't want to leave yet.
I'll open it for public comment for 15 seconds. Yes,
Sounds good.
okay.
For First Amendment.
Okay, public comment is closed. Commissioners,
I move to recommend that the Board of County Commissioners approve the amendments to the Land Use Code for the purpose of removing the requirement for short-term rental licensees to obtain a Colorado sales tax license from section 5-3001 as presented, based on the finding that the proposed amendment complies with the standards of the Land Use Code, section 5-1802, Land Use Code amendments, and is consistent with the Land Use Code, section 1-4, purposes of the Land Use Code.
I'll second that.
moved and seconded. I presume that means you're an aye? Comment?
I'm an aye.
He's an aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Robin?
I,
Chair votes aye. Do we need to name this the Kerr Amendment?
I would love to be remembered for something other than this.
Okay, fair enough. All right, thanks. Well, that concludes our normal business. Anything else from the staff? Otherwise, I'll entertain, because Maura reminded me, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Aye.
Robin?
I,
Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, that's not bad.